I had a hobby too. Mine happened to be guns and ballistics, and I studied guns and ballistics as much as I could, and I wrote an article about high velocity.
So out of all my years working at Weatherby, the last 5 have been some of the most exciting. Working with Adam, with him running the company.
And to think that I get the opportunity of carrying on my grandfather's legacy 75 years later here in Sheridan, Wyoming, I mean, it really is a dream come true.
Oh, I'm home. Thank God I'm home.
On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast.
On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast. We're going to try something a little different today. Mac and Micah, who've been on several times before, just got back literally 15 minutes ago. Well, you got back last night, but back in the office 15 minutes ago from a bear hunt.
Stop bears. Stop bears.
So
yes.
I got a couple extra sound bites in anticipation of this podcast. And here's what's new and what's different is I have, other than I know that I'm going to spoiler alert that you shot a bear. That's all I know, because you guys were just on the inReach, and it's worse than Twitter, like the cryptic messages.
We try to keep it cryptic. We knew we wanted to do a podcast,
So that's as far as I know, other than generally where you went and what you did. But Zach's also with us. Zach Hines, our new marketing director. So what we're going to do is you guys tell us the story, and we're going to hear it for the first time, and let's just see what happens.
Let's start at the beginning. Micah, this trip was inspired by you originally, and you sort of planned the beginning of this, so spin your tale here.
Okay, yeah, so a buddy of mine took me out last year, and I got to experience it in Idaho bear hunt, and so we wanted to do it again and just kind of go in totally new area, and looking at things, just the difficulty getting in, it kind of looked like a backcountry bush plane might be in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
So we chartered an airplane, and
Which, hold on, we're already going to have to hit some buttons. So you guys said, hey, we need some content. So for a new thing, which we're not going to really talk about in this podcast. Spoiler alert. But you're going to drive in, and then you're like, you were a little sheepish. You came in, and you're like, what if we fly in?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, it kind of just depends on what are we talking about here.
Luke had to go in and ask, or Mike had to go in and ask the boss, like, well, we could hike, but what if we paid for a plane?
I was like, well, it depends. I really had no concept of what a charter would be, and honestly, I was shocked that it was as little as it was.
We'll find out more about that and how it might not be as secluded as you think because of that.
Okay, keep going. Keep going. Well, then.
well, yeah. For that was my total first experience doing it, and it's if somebody's listening to this and is considering it, just call and talk to them. It's not some big scary thing, and later in the podcast you learned out it didn't go off without a total hitch, but it was pretty smooth.
So Micah last year, he was telling me about his bear trip. He hiked in 16 miles of trail to get to where him and his buddy John were going to hunt bears. And I'm no slouch when it comes to hiking. I do a lot of hiking around here as the content guy, but I was like, man, 16 miles. We weighed our packs, and we did like a little gear dump before we took this trip. That'll come out later. But like we carry like 20-something extra pounds of camera gear that most of you are not carrying when we go back into the backcountry because we got to film it. So I was like, man, 16 miles is quite a ways back, especially we're both carrying tags. Micah's got 2 tags. I've got 1 bear tag, and he's got a wolf tag in the off chance. So if we get really, really lucky, that's going to be heavy coming out.
Yeah.
Going to be real heavy.
Yeah.
So we opted to go with the plane to get back there. We were scouring.
So instead of hiking 16, it's fly in.
Fly in and then hike from the airstrip to where we want to hunt.
So if you don't know, Idaho has a ton of backcountry airstrips. There's grass strips. Some of them are much more, some are longer than others. Yeah. Some have a blind approach. Some have a real open approach. And so you definitely need to do some research. And there's entire books dedicated to the backcountry strips in Idaho. But sorry, keep going.
So we ended up after sleuthing, we looked at a couple of these different airstrips. Micah knew the area better than myself, having been around it last year, and he was like, I think this is the airport.
You can drive and hike in. It was just, when you're doing a spring bear, you don't know what the snow situation is. So there was I called some outfitters, I called the Forest Service, and just reached out to people to ask for help to find out local information. Is the road passable? Unfortunately, there was too much snow, and they're using crawlers to get back, and for the outfitters that were getting back.
Crawlers like a tracked thing?
Yeah.
We learned something about them. There is
I don't know that term.
4Runners. They're called snow runners. They jack 4Runners up and
Like
they
a
put
Toyota
treads
4Runner,
on. Yeah, and
yeah.
they put
with tracks.
treads on them. Like those
pretty
triangle treads, and just drive over the snow into the.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll have that.
Yeah. I'll take one of those. So that's how these guys are getting back here, and Mike and I were like, well, we don't have one, so we're going to do the plane, I guess, because we can't even drive to the hiking point.
And really for having a good time and the type of hunt and the amount of bears, for the cost of the flight, it was really something that DIYers can do. With an elk tag costing a lot of money these days.
An out-of-state. The flight was about the cost of an out-of-state elk license.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we basically put this whole plan together, and we left. We got pushed back a little bit because of weather. There was some gnarly weather in there, and you can't land planes in bad weather. But basically, we left the.
Well, you can. You just may not live when you land.
Yeah, well, you can crash land anything. So we left
Monday,
April 23rd.
Wow,
I'd have to look at a calendar.
That would have been a Friday, the 23rd.
We were gonna leave then. I think we left on a Sunday.
Yep, that's about
So we
right.
drove up like 8 hours, and then we flew in, and there we were in the backcountry on a backcountry landing strip.
You pull up to just like a backcountry airport. Where did you get picked up?
This was confusing because the charter service wasn't actually at their home airport because their airport was getting redone. So we were out of some other small town hangar. So we
just
actually
like a typical county airport.
Yeah,
tiny.
But
like
tiny.
smaller.
No name, no signs. It was just like people were renting hangars. We actually knocked on the wrong door, and some guy was like,
some guy's home. We thought it was like one of those home offices because it's right where the address they gave us took us to, and it was some guy's house.
He was super nice. We're like, oh, we're so sorry. Yeah, so we on our way back, kind of by the airstrip, we saw them gassing up a plane. We're like, that's gotta be us.
So we got on, met our pilots, and it's just this tiny little airplane.
Pilots.
So there was these backcountry airships. You're saying like some are different, some are harder. There was one pilot, Megan. She's been flying for 13 years.
Yep.
And she was training up another guy who had a lot of hours. He had his pilot's license, but she's training him on the backcountry strips.
Yeah.
Because they're
it's so
hard to
difficult.
land and hard to land in. So he's just along for the ride. She's like pointing things out to him as she's doing it. It's like, see, I look for this. I come around and I do this, blah, 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 just to train him up on the backcountry strip so he's ready to go. And I think she was doing a lot of flying. I think at the time with their airstrip and everything, they were pretty strapped for pilots. So I think she was doing overtime on that.
So how was it? The airstrip that you guys at, I understand, had a blind approach. So talk about that.
Yes.
It's kind of in a little bowl, and so she'd always did, like she says, I'll always do a flyover just because if there's elk or deer on the runway and you're going in that blind approach, there's no time to bail.
It's a nice green stretch grass, so there's critters on it a lot. Like a lot.
Sure.
So she does the flyover, and then once everything's cool, she positions herself, depending in those little aircraft. She was really the pilot, Darren. I think she was kind of showing the ropes to, on that approach. Really, the wind, the direction, and how she does things when she powers down. And she did a super tight kind of a.
She did an unusual approach. It's not how you actually approach this airport. Because if you don't know, Adam, our CEO, is a pilot, and we actually talked about him flying in to this airport. And he was like,
Which he's flown into some other.
he's flown into some
airports
other
near
backcountry.
this one.
Yeah,
Or
in Idaho
it's
even.
it's airport's the wrong word. Landing strip.
Yeah, landing strips, backcountry landing strips.
Fun fact, because I was just talking to him before we hopped in here. The plane we took, I showed him our picture, and it's the same plane he has.
So it's a Cessna 206.
So
Yeah.
so no excuses. That's what you're telling me.
No, but just like Adam flies a lot, but
Yeah.
this particular strip that you guys selected
Yeah.
has a blind approach, and he's like, I'm not comfortable. I haven't done that, and a good pilot's a safe pilot. So,
we saw a couple people when we were actually there take the approach that we think Adam was talking about. But our pilot had a bit of a different approach. She basically flew over the airstrip.
yeah, made
And
sure
there's
it was
this
clear.
sort of this corner turn in the river bend that most people would just come around, and that's your blind corner, and then they land, and they're already pretty low by then. She flies over the airstrip high, and it's in this bowl, like Micah said, and then she cranks it like we were pulling G's in this little plane. She's like barrel roll sideways, does a Yui in this bowl, and then comes back into the airstrip and lands it.
And it like immediately after that turn just drops straight down in so that she can then
so it
power
got
down.
like real Western,
She
real
was like,
fast on you guys.
Like just complete Yui in, not a lot of space for an airplane, and she's like
Sweet.
coming down to the airstrip. So that was her different approach, and we're like, whoa, that was
Were you filming that?
yeah, we filmed it. I was like, that was pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
And Micah thought he was gonna fall into me because the plane turned like sideways.
Well, yeah, I'm looking. Mac is down below me now and trying to grab a handle or anything to not.
But
fall,
it was super cool. It was both of our times on a backcountry landing strip in the tiny bit plane, and we didn't die in the landing, and that was big.
And it's cool too because it really opened my eyes to just new opportunities. Like it's kind of that your first out of state hunt, and then your first backcountry hunt, and then your first
First
Aerial
time
drop.
horses, anything, the ability to get further back in than you ever really could.
yeah. So
I mean, we're flying over snow-covered peaks and stuff, and like we're a long ways from where we took off.
it was so cool.
Gorgeous flying.
Did you see anything like
We couldn't see
animals from the air?
You saw some critters.
I saw like 25 elk.
Sweet.
Yeah.
No mountain goats or anything like that, but Micah saw some elk on the landing, and that was pretty cool.
So you land,
Mm-hmm.
and they just like kick you out of the plane and take off.
Yep, you get out of the plane, they take your gear out. They were real nice. The pilot was joking like, "Here, I want to be careful with this. I don't want to be TSA with your camera here." So, shout out to TSA.
Shout out.
And so
we got her contact information, and then she asked the day that we're scheduled to pick up if we could give them a weather report for what it's actually like there, because
From the inReach.
yeah, because there's depending on the fog coming off the river or just the weather conditions, so they can know for sure if we're the first flight that day. But they end up being socked in with fog out of the airport they were flying at, so everything got backed up.
getting ahead of yourself here.
Well,
All right,
it was
so-
pertinent to that point.
So you exchange information, and then
They take off.
they take off.
You're there. That's actually a pretty good sound bite. Where'd you get
I
that from?
just, I made it. So
Just made it. Got a sound studio I don't know about.
I can Google. So
So then
you're
it gets
alone.
real quiet.
All of a sudden, you're alone, and it's quiet. And what?
And we got off. We flew a little early. We were supposed to take off at 10.
Well, so this is funny because we're there, we're alone, we're ready to get going, and immediately that's when I realized that I did not download the maps.
Yes. Good point. But yours truly did.
Hey, so it's
I actually got this like punchy sound, so I think we're gonna use that a few times on here.
and so in my excitement and planning of all this hunts, like I had, glassing spot 1, glassing spot 2, backup plan, B, C, and the between all of that, Google Earth, the paths I planned out, I missed the major to getting
the entire base map,
to
basically.
getting it to my device. And so, well, I mean, not the entire thing. I had my inReach points logged and synced, I didn't have my Onyx downloaded. So I wanted to be able to, I like having both. So I was kind of limited with the inReach, kind of the just basic maps. But I mean, I could still navigate. And I'd been staring at a screen like, pre-planning that I had enough of it basically memorized. So I had our general bearing. Yeah. And then my great hunting partner here, who actually had the maps downloaded, helped immensely.
So we had the satellite. Yep. Thankfully. We had the satellite imagery because his inReach was still there. He did have his glassing points and stuff on the inReach, so we were like, we could read the topo and stuff. And we could both read maps, but we learned something. We're experienced backcountry hunters, but not done Idaho before for me personally. And maps, they're a lot easier to hike up the hill on the map. I learned that in Idaho.
I learned that here too.
I was just looking at it. We're like, oh, yeah, this glassing spot. So we had a plan. We had glassing spot 1, glassing spot 2. We're looking at these bowls. When you're bear hunting, you want steep hillsides, south-facing, and you're hoping they're green because those bears are coming out of hibernation, and they're skinny, and they're hungry, and they just want to eat, and then go back into some timber, lay down, come out and eat, go back, eat. So that's kind of what we found, and we were looking at these bowls, and we're like, these look really good. So we had 2 spots where we could look into them, one kind of lower, one way at the top.
How far from the airstrip?
A few miles, 4 or 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5 miles. And
so after you landed, you guys just started heading that
Just started hiking. It's about 10 o'clock when we landed.
a.m.?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And so I think we had a mile of trail.
Yep.
And then it started off trail to get to these bowls. And so there's feeder creeks, and around glassing spot 1, I had pre-planned on the map. It had said there were, I think I had 4 spots where it said, water, check water here, check water here, that were all feeder creeks.
Yep.
And unfortunately, they were all dry.
Yeah, so we're counting on these feeder
Not
creeks.
enough melt yet.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of melt. Just I think these south-facing sides, I think they dried up.
Gotcha.
And in the kind of the sweet spot, at least in my limited experience, because I'm not an expert bear hunter, but the bowls where you got exposed meadows with that grass coming out that have either in part of that bowl, that hillside, and then deep dark timber next to that
It's a good recipe.
creek. Yeah, so there's cool thermal draft corridors, there's dark timber, and then they got a sunny hillside.
And they got food and water.
Yeah, and the steeper the better, because typically it's rocky, and then rocky means dens. So that's kind of this, if I could describe perfect spot, or at least what I think is a good spot. And that's what we went to this area for. But when we get up, 2,000, and it was kind of deceiving because we went like 4 or 5 miles, but it was really the last 2.5 that were all of our elevation gain.
Yeah, Idaho, if you haven't hunted Idaho before, Idaho is just up and down, up and down, up and down. It's the steepest country you can imagine. And it doesn't get that high. It's like comparatively.
Yeah.
The mountains, they do have some big mountains in Idaho, but most of the mountains in Idaho are like, big one is 6,000 feet. Like, that's a big one.
6, yeah.
But you go from 2,000, we did this you can go from 2,000 feet to over 4,000 in a mile, just straight up.
We did that a lot.
We did that a lot.
Yeah.
So we start hiking, and we're trying to get to these bowls, glassing spot 1 and 2, and it's like 4 miles. And like Micah said, after a couple miles, it starts to get steep. And at this point, I noticed another fatal flaw. Micah hadn't downloaded the maps. Micah made another bold move on this trip to start off with. He was trying to save some weight, so he didn't have so much as a water bottle filled at the bottom.
Ooh. Yeah. I like to beat myself up.
He's talking about how thirsty he is, and I know he's got a hydration bladder, like the Camelback, and then he's got a blender bottle that he makes his shakes, but he also drinks out of. And I was like, I just have my water bottle because we're expecting creeks, and I have
never don't have a water bottle.
Yeah, there's a reason for that, as you will soon learn. We haven't had this happen on one of our trips yet, but we start hiking up this, and these feeder creeks are not turning out. So Mike is dying of thirst. I'm now rationing a 32-ounce Nalgene between 2 full-grown men. And we're just trying
rationing me only 2 sips.
I offered it to you, and you turned it down because you saw what was happening.
Yeah.
So we're climbing this hill, and we're running out of water. We're both starting to get real thirsty. And it's hot this whole time we're here. We actually had amazing weather the whole time, but it was hot. It was like 65, 70 degrees, sun beating down on us. And we're sweating.
Mac's like a thoroughbred, racehorse, and I'm kind of like this old scraggly goat. And so with no water, Mac starts cramping up, and I like to we called it his mountain yoga. So
it was bad.
We had to take a couple breaks on the way up because
For stretching.
Yeah, because we were cramping up, and it was super rough. And we get to the glassing knob. There's no hope of water, and we basically at that point decided to push a little bit further and get to the snow line, and because we know we can melt snow. And that turned out to be, I'd actually never had to do that on a hunt, and it turned out to be a super painful process. We ended up burning a lot of fuel.
It's a waste of fuel. It takes forever to melt snow.
The jet boil was impressive. But
it is impressive, but you're
burning a lot of fuel.
The whole time I'm like, I might need this fuel for food later.
Yeah, I think you're underscoring, but I would like to talk about like how much these cramps sucked.
Oh, okay. Well, and I for the record, since we're doing this, I did not cramp a single time on that hill.
Micah didn't.
Was the faithful hiking partner that stayed right next to his hurt buddy while he was doing
to be a
downhill.
goat there.
We got like a family history in my. You mentioned I always have a water bottle, Luke. I drink water all the time because we played sports. Me and my brothers growing up. And every sporting event, wrestling match, football game, you name it, one of us was cramping. We drank Pedialyte, we drank coconut water, we drank pickle juice. My brother got an IV one time.
Still cramp.
Every game. Wow. Cramps. It runs in the family, don't know why. So not drinking water, climbing this hill, my quads were on fire and like locking up. So I am like fetal position on the hill, like stretching them out with my pack on.
In my head, knowing like this last year was the most brutal hunt I've ever done, I was thinking this is day one, and like my dude right here is down, and I'm like, we haven't even made it to the first.
Not a good start.
It's so annoying because like I'm breathing good, like my legs, with the rest of my legs feel good. I'm a pretty good hiker, but I'm like my quads are just like locked up, and I can't move at all. And we still have like a mile and a half to go and like 1,000 feet. And I'm like, Micah, I don't know if I'm going to make it.
Rough start.
Yeah. Rough start. It took all day to get to the top. But like Micah said, at that point, we decided to get to the snow line. We're like, these feeder creeks are dry. We need to melt snow. We're both getting really dehydrated. This could get bad really
hot.
soon. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're delirious, made it to the top, dehydrated, and finally, we, after taking a break, melting some snow and getting some fluids in us, Mac got a fire started, got to get camp set up, and we kind of were like, this is home base for now because this is the situation we're in. Mm-hmm. But at least we were to the glassing spot so we could see forever.
Yeah. We made it to glassing spot 2, which was about 5,000 feet. We'd come up from, I think the airstrip is at like 2,600, and this was over a course of 4 miles. Little over.
Pretty good.
So pretty good grade.
Yeah.
There was actually like an outfitter's trail or something like that, so it wasn't terrible. This was off trail. We weren't on any marked Onyx trails or anything like that, but there was a little outfitters had clearly been coming up here or somebody or whatever, and it helped a lot on that. We got up. We're like, okay, we're setting up the tent. We don't know where water is. We're in totally new country. We're going to just like get some fluids in us. Micah brought a big 10-liter gravity feed. Mm-hmm. And we boiled water and poured it on ice in there to like melt the snow.
Yeah.
And then also we're planning on using the sun to melt some of it throughout the day.
We even took turns holding it close to the fire, just to get it, try and get it heated up and going.
That was real effective. Let me tell you.
It was.
We didn't burn a hole in the bag. That was what we were trying to avoid.
Very ineffective.
But we got to our glassing spot, and because of the cramps slowing us down, and we didn't get into our landing spot until about 10, setting up camp. That, for the most part,
that's the first day.
It took, day one, we didn't see anything. We saw some elk. There was a ton of whitetail actually in this area. Surprisingly, we saw only 2 or 3 mule deer.
That's surprising.
We saw over probably 200 whitetails
No
the whole
kidding.
time we were there.
Huh.
And there were some elk just grazing on the hill next to us, and we're like, "Oh, cool! There's life up here. There's critters up here. There's 3 elk just chilling." We spooked a couple and saw some moose sign as well on the way up.
Find any sheds?
No, she said the pilot actually said people pay to fly back in there and then load up on sheds.
No kidding.
So these people must comb the hills.
Maybe
because
that's what the trail you found was.
It-
The
yeah.
Shed Hunters Trail.
Well, I'm assuming they when they fly in to clear the runway, that there's a whole bunch down there because it's an open meadow.
Probably,
you know,
yeah.
down
Man,
low.
I think we didn't see
But-
sheds actually the whole time, so I think the people comb it. I mean, if you're going to pay to get a pilot to fly you back and then you're taking that off the top of your cut for sheds,
That's a lot of sheds.
like you must be a pretty serious shed hunter.
Yeah.
It would look pretty picked over.
Oh, that's a lie. We did find a couple near the end, but we'll get to those.
All right.
So that's kind of day 1 in the books.
Little rainstorm came in. We got the tent literally set up just in time.
Perfect.
30 seconds. It was like
Yeah,
just blowing in and just like rain coming down. I was like, oh, we're going to go sit in the tent.
It was a pretty rough day, and then so day 2, we're like, hey, you can't kill bears if you don't find bears, and you got to see bears. So that was the whole point. In
All true statements.
that was the point in getting high, so we could glass.
It's not actually a totally true statement. Micah managed to kill a bear, and he didn't see a bear the whole trip. So, but we'll get to that.
This is so
I may have used Micah as my personal punching bag a couple times on this trip. Day two, we're like, I wouldn't say we're refreshed, but like, okay, we've got fluids, and this is glassing spot 2. That is where we made it to on Micah's markers, and we can see a lot of country. We can see a lot.
And unfortunately, the 2 most promising bulls that were the closer ones that I actually intended on hunting were just deer and elk. Like they're no bear sign, and the feeder creeks were dry. But since we were on this point, we still had tons of options around us. And so there's this huge kind of a deadfall ridge, and off to I don't know, was that
kind of the
north of us. So it was another kind of south facing place. But when we got there, and after that first morning, after glassing for a little while, we were kind of a little discouraged, thinking we came a little too early because
for that spot,
everything wasn't as green as
it was
we
very
thought.
brown looking, very brown looking around us.
But within the next few days, we timed it perfect because the green up, a couple rain showers.
you could feel it happening while you're there.
Yeah, you literally see it. Yeah, it was impressive.
That's cool.
So I'll let Mac take over here because I didn't see a bear.
We're day 2, like Micah said, we're pretty discouraged. We beat my legs, my quads specifically, are just so sore. I didn't cramp up in the night. I think you did that night. Did you get a Charlie horse that night?
I can't remember.
I think that was the night you told me you did. So we're pretty beat up getting up here. We're tired, and it's only day 1. And we're like, oh man, that was a rough start. We didn't see anything but elk and whitetail. And I've gone on.
Morale was pretty low because honestly, having a rough go that hard the first day, our spirits were down and we didn't see any bears. And then day 2 definitely turned around because we started seeing bears.
Yeah.
Right away on day 2, huh?
Not right away, but we get up that morning, make a little fire. We're still doing the melt in the water situation. It's annoying. We're milling about, making breakfast and stuff like that. And I've gone on a couple bear hunts with Luke, and and then I went on with Adam. Like between all that, I think I've seen like 2 bears.
Yeah.
Like I've not. Part of the reason we came to Luke and we're like, we need more bear content. Micah pitched this trip is like
we've not been winning.
We've not been winning the bear game. Seeing bears has been hard. Shooting bears has been harder. And so I'm just thinking back to all my other trips. I was like, man, we've gone for 3 or 4 or 5 days and just seen nothing or one bear or whatever. So I'm hoping this trip doesn't turn into. And Micah's got me psyched because his trip last year they saw a bunch of bears, but they went 5 days without seeing one. They were in there for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so it's day 2. We don't want to get too down on ourselves. And we just start glassing. We can see a lot. We can't see. We pretty much determined the bull off to our side.
How far, when you say you can see a lot, like you're seeing miles?
I can see miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. We spotted a bear pretty far off. We are looking around. And actually, this is the first bear we saw. Mike and I are looking. Sometimes when you get glass, you glass the close stuff. Sometimes you fail to glass what's close enough, but then you get bored and you start looking away. I spotted a bear that we estimated was the first bear of the trip on Tuesday afternoon, morning. He was probably like 3 miles away. It was probably one of the better spots I've had.
About like the one that we found at the end of our trip last year?
Yeah, farther.
Wow.
Well,
yeah.
if we wouldn't had that digital camera, we wouldn't been. I would have been like, Mac, I think you saw a moose, because you know it was that big and that far away, and watching it cross behind trees, and then watching the video footage of that digital camera, since with the 60x zoom rate or whatever, to confirm it actually was a bear, was just mind blowing. I mean, that was a Bruin.
We saw
The most epic spot that. I don't know how you spotted that.
Micah described this bear. We saw this bear. He's probably 3 miles away. He's like, we're never shooting this bear unless we decommit our entire trip and we just go after this bear, because he's in like brutal country and he's across the river and he's way far away. But it's like, guys, we saw a bear. Like it's already starting to get the morale up. Micah described him as a VW Beetle. He was a big boy far off. So we saw a bear, and that immediately, when you see an animal, it lifts, like the animal you're hunting. We're seeing elk and stuff. It lifts your spirits.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Glad I put that one on there. Yeah. We got excited, and I talked to Micah about this a couple times on this trip. There's no animal I like more, and I can't describe it. And it's not just because I'm hunting them and I'm not hunting other things at the time. Seeing black bears gets me super excited. I don't know if it's because we've had such a hard time finding them, but there's something about seeing a black bear on a hillside that's just.
I feel like they're elusive.
Yeah, it's really. You see one, you go like, I can see elk when I go elk hunting, and I'm super excited because I'm gonna go try to shoot that elk. But when I see a black bear on a hillside, I'm like, oh, there's a black bear! There's a black bear!
Yeah.
It's just it really gets me going. So we're feeling a little better, and we're like, all right, we're not totally idiots. We did the scouting. Bears do live
only slide
in the general area. And at this point, we're glassing a little bit more. Maybe take a siesta on the hillside. Nice sunny hillside. I spot a bear. Micah was describing this big deadfall area that we're looking off to our north.
Yep.
It's this giant deadfall that goes up almost even to us at 5,000 feet, but comes straight down. And there's this spine and a whole deadfall field. And I just see a big black blob on the top of this. And I put my binos on it. I'm like, Micah, black bear. And it's like not 3 miles away. Black bear.
Yeah, this is one that we can actually make a play on and bomb off the face of
how far are we talking?
23. No, that was the further hill. She was like 1,600.
Yeah,
16, 1,800.
So doable.
Yeah. So
killable bear.
We're making a game plan to bomb off the glassing spot, go down, and then come up, and then not have this bear catch our thermals, and be or see how far the shot would be from going down, and then if we need to go up. So we're trying to make a game plan, and I'm like throwing together stuff. He's watching.
We're putting camp up because we're gonna put camp on our back because we were gonna bomb.
Oh, so you're planning to just
we're bombing 2,000 feet off this thing. If
because there's no water.
We
here
maybe
anyway.
wanted to follow a spine down and get close for a long shot.
So camp is already put up, or you spot the bear, then you go
camp
pack
is put up. We're like
okay.
taking turns, switching, packing up our stuff, trying to keep eyes on the bear. Because we're going to have to bomb 2,000 feet down and probably climb this hill and try to shoot this bear. And if we do all this, we're camping at the bottom of this hill.
Well, and when we're looking at that bear from the glassing spot, it's, basically eye level. So we're going to lose all our elevation and have to gain it back. So, yeah, we're moving camp. And then Mac's like, oh, wait, I think I see some cubs. So we kind of pumped the whole brakes on that plan. And I've never seen it, but there was triplets, so we saw three cubs.
It was probably it was the most crushing thing, because we were like, bear we can shoot, bear we can shoot. Oh, and it didn't.
Bear we can't shoot.
Yeah, bear we can't shoot. Yeah.
Didn't even cross my mind when we're thinking about seeing bears.
Yeah.
Didn't even cross my mind that we'd see one with cubs and we couldn't shoot it. Like,
So
you
we're,
just,
how big? Like fresh cubs? Like
these were
year-
little
yeah,
footballs.
little,
Oh, like freshies.
like hilarious. They were.
Nice.
It was
They're-
actually the cutest thing. I'm not gonna lie. Me and my wife are big animal lovers, and I told her about it. She's like, "Oh, babies."
They were playing. Like we watched them forever.
They're on a deadfall field, so these little cubs are like rolling on the logs and like running up them, trying to keep
just
up with mama.
being cute little bear cubs.
Yeah, it was. You know, you just want to go up and pet them. You should go and try that. It's really good for you. Good for your health. But at the same time, it was super exciting. We saw a bear that we're like, oh, we can totally shoot this bear. And then it was like, we can't shoot this bear. It was like just a big, huge letdown. It's like, oh,
Like a half an hour of build up. And
man.
Yeah,
We
so-
had packed up
crushed.
all of
Your
camp. Like,
Camp's torn down now.
yeah.
So well, luckily we didn't get the tent.
We didn't get the tent down.
torn down, but so then we kind of simmer down a little bit and get back to glassing and
Yeah, that one. And so
that was mid morning, and then a little bit later, Mama Bear popped out again with her cubs. So she was kind of just milling about in that same spot or general area.
Yep.
And then a little bit later, Mac again is like, "Oh, I got a bear!
I got a
got a bear." We kept watching Mama. She kept, as we named her affectionately, Mama. She kept popping out. She definitely lived there, and just would occasionally offer us some views of her and her little cubs. So we named this spot. We were like, you start to name the spots around you. It's this big spine that runs down into this deadfall field. That's now Mama's spine. Mama lives on there.
Good
if we
name.
see a bear at the top of that or the middle of that hill, it's probably her. But at the same time, we're like, okay, well, at some point, some big papa bear made 3 little youngins, so there could be something else around it. And the thing about bears, when we went in 2019, we didn't see this because we weren't on the hill looking, but we got directed allegedly to like 2 or 3 different bears. They said they kept going into the hill and coming out. So I kind of know that about bears. I'm like, when you see one,
It's a chance there's more.
generally you can turn up. They're not herd animals, but you can generally turn up another.
Yeah.
So we're like, this is a good direction. Let's keep looking this way. And I'm trying to remember what the second one we saw was. Was it the one way down?
No,
There's lots of bears.
I think
Yeah.
it was so after Mama's spine, there was another ridge. It's still in the same basin, I think, if you could call it that. Just another ridge over, and Max spotted another bear over there.
Yeah, we did.
And
Yeah, we saw that
I
first.
think that was the big
Mama Jamba.
the big bear. And so we thought this was a big boar. We had some time to look at him. And, from lumbering to the shortness of the legs, the belly being low,
Yep.
all classic things that you can try and identify a big boar with.
But he's on the next ridge over. So Mama was like 1,800. This bear's like 2,600. So we're still zooming
So
in pretty
if you're
far.
going to make a play, are you going to have to hike past Mama?
Kinda, yeah.
Well, not our wind. She might catch our wind going to this other bear, but not directly past her.
And we didn't want to camp like it'd be one thing if we're like, okay, we ranged down Mama's spine where we thought we could get a shot into this next canyon, basically part of the same basin or whatever, but next
Right.
hillside. Like, okay, Mama's is 1,600 away, and that hill is 2,000. It's probably a 400-yard shot. 400, 500. I mean, we're not
Not
we're
mathematicians,
going,
but
we're
that's
going
pretty-
downhill, aiming at this one, and then aiming across to this one.
Sure.
But like, it's
Yeah.
somewhere.
It's
It's
like-
shootable.
A squared plus B squared. Like, I don't know. We were like doing that whole deal. So we're like, we think it'll be a 400 to 500-yard shot. And so right about that time, Max said, I got another bear.
Yeah.
And this is
Have you spotted a bear yet?
The score is 4-0 plus
Okay.
3 cubs
Just-
for me.
Just checking.
Yeah. And I promise everybody listening, I am not blind. But I don't know. That's just how the cookie crumbled on this whole deal. So now we're looking at a third bear. And both these the second and the third bear, we can't identify any cubs. This one was a little harder. It just looked like just a bear. We had no presumption.
Barometer, would you?
Yeah.
I need a dun-dun.
So, but anyway, we're excited because we both got tags. Now we see two, shootable bears, and we're getting ready to. Well, this was pretty late now. So
Yeah, this
we
was
were
later in the
kinda-
evening. We last all day. This is still day 2.
So we're just basically, okay, we got the bears pinned down. Let's not go in there late, rush things, and blow them out.
Yeah, this is game plan time.
Yeah. So we're sitting there and we're like, okay, we know where they're at. We just said the range. Basically, we go to bed that night and.
Well, no, so we game plan a little. We're still boiling water at this point, or boiling.
So you don't have a
snow.
real fresh water source.
Yeah, we're struggling. And we were basically going off these feeder creeks. So we start looking at the Onyx that I downloaded. And at the bottom of our hill and in the next basin where we had seen these other bears, there's 2 creeks that have names on Onyx. And we're like, okay.
Surely those have water.
Surely those have got to have water.
Yeah.
Like these are actually named creeks. They're at the bottom where all these feeders would go into. And we kind of start to make our game plan. It's like, what are we going to do where we can set up base camp again and have a shot at these bears, but also not do what we're doing here because we're going to run out of fuel if we keep.
We had to get off that glassing spot because it was not sustainable. So we just made the game plan. We're gonna go down, get to that creek
with everything.
Yeah, everything. Yeah. So
Turn on
we're
camp.
We're taking camp on our back. We go down the next morning, and going down was like anything, safety. It's super steep, going through deadfall, going through snow.
You getting ahead of you? Are you on day 3?
So,
Yeah, I was talking in the morning when we go down.
Well, we didn't go down before something happened.
What?
oh,
we
I
were-
I love it when this happens.
Yeah.
What
so,
happened,
So
Mac?
we were tearing down. We were getting ready to tear down camp, and I spotted another bear
5 to
at the
nothing?
bottom of Mama's spine.
Oh, so
1,000 yards
so
away from
much
us.
closer.
Oh, okay. I'll let you take this one.
Well, you can take it. I
No.
just this is the reason we bombed.
Okay. So okay, sorry.
This was early morning.
There's so many bears, I can't remember now.
So bear 5 is the closest bear yet.
Bear 5. Bear 5
Yeah.
is killable. We don't know
Killable
how
bear.
big it is. I'd have to look at some of this footage blowing up on the screen, but we've worked really hard. We have 3 bear tags. That's a bear we can kill right down at the bottom
Wait,
of our
there's
hill.
2 of you. You have 3 bear tags.
Micah's got 2. I've got 1.
Perfect.
So now we have camp on our back, and we have a killable bear. Mac watched him. We're going down this mountain.
And it's on Mama's spine, but we made sure there was no cubs, and it's all the way at the bottom, so we assume it's a different bear.
Yep.
Just for clarity.
Yeah, and so we get down, and luckily along the way there was enough of an opening that we could kind of keep tabs on that. But
Sweet.
when we get down there, we can relocate this bear. So it kind of just
We lost him 5 minutes before we were supposed to head out of camp because we had to take eyes off him. Couldn't turn him back up. And we're like, but we know this about bears. So, we assume it. They go into some shade and they eat
they take a
and they
nap.
come back out.
Yeah, come.
And we figured it was going to take us some time to bust down the spine. There was a spine next to us. We basically saw what we called a second glassy knob. And I was like, Micah, if we can get to that knob, you can probably take maybe a 600-yard shot at this bear if he's still out. And so we decided to side hill for the first time.
yeah.
So you're going to cut your way across to the other glassing point.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically down to our left, coming down. It's the same direction. But we decided to side hill for the first time. And that was the start of something right there.
A lot of that to come. We safely navigate through that, and then can't relocate the bear, so we decided to go a little closer. And ultimately, we just get down to the bottom, and that bear we never turned up.
Never saw it again.
Yeah, never turned up.
Really?
We just, we got a couple clearings along the way. We kept looking at where he was, and we had just bombed down 2,000 feet through deadfall. We cut across a forest, which turned out to be a bad decision instead of following the spine.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of fast-forwarded that pretty quick, but, yeah, it was a pretty substantial.
We're coming down a north face
2,000
with
feet.
snow and deadfall, and and we cut through the forest, and that was a bad idea.
You'll be walking on snow, and then, post hole straight up to your waist, and
with
tweak your
60
knee.
plus pounds. That's fine.
Yeah.
Wet, slippery, deadfall logs you're trying to cross. There was also, at one point I did get a little fun snow ride. Down
Do a little sledding?
A little shoot, yeah.
Sweet.
But we were beating through the brush, beating downhill, and we were pretty upset we couldn't turn up this bear again. And we knew we got to a second glassing point on the way down. We're kind of in the trees, but they cleared out to where we could see. At this point, we could shoot this bear where he had been at 300 yards. But now we face a dilemma. We've seen 2 really big bears on the hill behind him, but the way is straight through where we saw this bear we thought we could kill this morning. And we are like,
That's unnerving, even if you decide,
do we...
There was a bear right
here. There
here.
was a bear right here. And he...
And he's probably not far.
And we had to tear down camp and, move, and we saw him, he probably was eating and stuff for an hour and a half to 2 hours, while we were making our game plan, tearing down camp, doing stuff.
My suspicion is that when we were moving down closer to get a shot, there's no way to navigate that without making a whole bunch of noise. So I think he
never came back out.
Yeah, I think he may or may not have heard us.
He could have boogied.
I just think we were making so much noise coming down that hill, trying to safely, even though we're trying to not snap as many twigs and stuff as you try to. But so we get down to the bottom, and ultimately we made a decision that we've been seeing so many bears in the next ridge over that let's not blow it out. Let's just set up camp. We're completely exhausted.
We ran out of water again on the way down the hill because it was a long way down. But we could hear the water running at the bottom, so we're thirsty. And we're after a couple hours of going down and waiting and stuff, we're all right, this bear's not showing up. We're going to risk blowing him out. We've seen 2 big bears on this next hill. So we get to the bottom, and there's a stream, thank the Lord, creek down there that we're able to fill up on. And it's one of those cool, you're at the bottom of a ravine. It's these really old cedar trees and stuff like that, and everything's covered in moss. It's kind of something out of Narnia. It's a different world down there. The temperature's 20 degrees cooler. It's that cool mountain meadow or whatever.
Thermal corridor or whatever. Just that cold air sucking down down the creek. So
sweet. Take a break.
Different.
Yeah, it smells. It's kind of damp. Yeah. So we get some water, and we're just trying to game plan. We're probably camping at the bottom of this thing because.
What time is it right now?
I couldn't tell you what the time is right now. It's past midday. It took us a while
sometime
to get down.
Mid-afternoon. Okay.
So we throw down camp pretty rushed. We get kill mode engaged. So we're just running kill kits and camera gear, bare minimums that we need to get up the ridge.
Yeah, by the time we still had to meander a mile down this creek after our break or whatever and find a good camp spot. Where we thought Mama Spine started. We didn't want to camp on Mama Spine because it's a bad idea to camp where there's a mama with her cubs. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, that's probably a really, really bad idea.
So we camped at the bottom, and it's 5 o'clock at this point when we're done setting up camp at the bottom. Sunset, when we had left Missoula, when we had passed through Missoula, the time that it said on my phone, it was cached.
Yeah.
Because it was the last time I'd opened it.
Sure.
It said it was 8:40. So I'm okay, 9:10's our shooting light, basically. Yeah. And we don't know how long it's going to take us to bomb up this hill to get where we can shoot. We think we have to go about 1,000 feet up. And it is 5 or 6 o'clock. So we're okay, this is we don't know how long. It might take us a couple hours to get up this hill. We're pretty beat. Drop everything, take the kill kits.
Yep. So then we pick the ridge going up that is part of Mama's Spine, but at that point we're we can't relocate this other bear. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll turn him up on the way up, and we can just kind of shoot parallel.
Sure.
If he pops up, but we're banking on the 2 other bears that are shootable
on the other side.
On the other side of the ridge. So we're going up there, and our estimation, it was just so close because it's so steep up there that we just think our proximity and our noise plus the thermals, when you get down there, you don't know what the wind is going to be like on the other
Sure.
side. I mean, I can look through the glass and make a guesstimation, but it's just see the veg blown a certain way or whatever. But when we get up there, the wind was
Going uphill.
Yeah, the thermals were going up, and it wasn't ideal, but we thought the wind would bypass the other bears on the other ridge.
It's kind of going up Mama's spine, and we're looking across to this ridge.
So,
she's probably not going to be there. But
so we're like, we can make a play on these other bears because they're not going to know, but we were so close, ranging the other hillside. It was only 400 to 500 yards away, and the thermal updraft didn't have the noise dampening as like a strong breeze.
Sure.
So we're still making noise going through this deadfall, which is just
this is the worst.
I don't want to go through another deadfall.
You can't get through deadfall quietly.
There's
no way to do it.
This is actually probably the worst one we went through as far as deadfall fields.
Yeah,
we
fighting the whole way.
We busted deadfall the whole way down, and then we have to sprint up this hill. We're Mike is talking about the old goat and the thoroughbred. We're both hauling it up this hill, but this is the worst deadfall I've ever walked through. It's everywhere. It's just cumbersome. It's snapping.
It's up and down. You don't know what you can trust.
It's just and we're going
with willow brush, or we're just call it whatever the brush is too. So you're constantly fighting through that stuff.
Perfect.
It's snagging on everything.
Yeah,
you're just fighting the whole way up.
You probably can't see Mike and I that well on the cameras if you're watching, but Luke and Zach were making comments.
It looks like you fought a bear with your forearms, Mac.
We're pretty cut up. Micah tore a hole in his butt.
brand new pants, tore a hole in them. Yeah.
And I'm going to slightly derail us here, but I brought in a visual aid for these guys. So I got these First Light Shale Touch hybrids. Luke actually recommended to me. These gloves probably saved my life on this trip.
I love those gloves.
But shout out to First Light.
For sure.
They were incredible for this trip. But at the same
what
time,
did you do to
if
them?
you look at them, you might think I owned them for 10 years.
You just
these
got
were
these.
literally not worn before this trip. And they are torn to absolute hell.
I've had mine for 2 years and they don't look that bad.
Yeah, Idaho was quite rude to this gear, but it survived. I was able to stay farther, go longer, or stay longer, go farther. I don't know. That was my ad
Nailed
moment
it.
there.
Anyway, we get
All right,
up.
so let's get up this hill. What happens on the top of this
I
hill?
feel like we're dragging on here. We're not going to get through this story because
You can't rush a good story. All right, we're going to tell the story.
Okay. Well, are we hurting on time? Are we?
We're 50 minutes in, so
we're going to tell the good story.
Yeah. But let's get up the hill though.
So we're up the hill and we're in position. But like I said, I think we made too much noise going out and barely set. I don't have a shooting position set up. I don't have anything. And Max yelling out bear, bear, bear.
Like close.
Right where we were
got up and
expecting
sat
them to
for
be.
15 minutes, 20 minutes.
So you got to the top. You set up to glass.
To not to the top, but where we had glass, we're okay, this will be a 400-yard shot. It's kind of flat.
Okay.
We obviously cannot see as much. Every time you lose all that elevation, you can't see as much. We're dang, we can't see where both of those bears were.
Trees are in the way.
Yep, we can see where one of them is.
We got to where we were parallel with those two bears on the next ridge over. We weren't totally up at the top, but we were parallel, and it was perfect actually for the shot that we had. But we're just kind of glassing, and we just got there, and I hadn't even set up a shooting position, and Max yelling bear, bear, bear. So
essentially 6-0 at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm first thing I'm asking Mac, does it have cubs? Can you see cubs? Because we want to shoot a legal.
Played that game already. Yeah.
We wanted to be safe on that.
And then I look at it and it's brown, and I'm like, oh, cool, color phase.
Yeah,
and
cool.
The other two bears that we'd seen were both just typical black bears, and so this bear is moving and get on the hillside away, and I range it. It's 400 and some yards, and I just don't want this bear to we worked so hard to get over here, so I don't want this bear to get away.
Yeah, we're shooting this bear. We worked really hard, big, small, whatever, as long as it don't get cubs.
So Mac says he's on him, and I'm building my shooting position. So I take my pack and I stand it straight up because there's no chance I'm going to get prone because there's so many sticks and brush and all this stuff. So right between the yoke of my or the stabilizers of this pack, I basically bury that rifle, and it's enough that I can kind of do a seated position shot. Not ideal, but in what I had to work with.
Feel pretty good. Yeah.
So I got the range, and then I'm dialing in the Kestrel, like my pants are on fire, trying to to confirm my dope. And so I got the dope and dialed up to 4.5, and reacquire the bear.
Which you're shooting what? What cartridge?
A 300 Weatherby.
Cool.
180 grand AccuBonds.
Right.
Yep. We'll get there. So then Mac is, what are you shouting out at this point?
So I'm when Micah says I get on him, we have this camera, we try to record our kill shots. So I've got this FZ80, and it's the one with the 60 times optical zoom. So I go into that first to confirm on this bear, like, okay, it doesn't have any cubs. Like, we're good to go. I just want to be extra sure. And then I have a second camera where I'll film the shooter, so I'll get that one on a tripod, and I'll film Micah. So I get that one set up, and I get it loosely on the bear, just some footage, and I'm watching him and make sure he doesn't have anything. I'm like, okay, go to grab my other camera, and I'm like trying to turn it on, get it turned towards Micah, and then I'm going to get the final ready to go. Like, we kind of have this, hunt with Adam or Luke a lot. I'm like, on him? Yep, good.
Yeah.
You good? Okay, I'm going. And Micah's ranging this bear. He's got these trees at 400 yards.
Well, I range the bear dips behind these trees.
He's walking left to right.
Left to right, dips behind some trees, and I range the next opening, and there's rocks, and it was like 404 yards or whatever.
Okay.
So I ranged those rocks, and I said, I got him. It's 400. When he steps behind those trees, what did I?
He said that in his head.
I thought I said I've got him. I said I've got him, and then I thought I said the range to you.
We have visual recordings of this, or digital recordings.
We'll have to play it.
You're in go mode.
I'm in go
in
mode.
Kill mode.
Yeah. So essentially, what I'm looking at through my reticle is I have it placed, and I'm timing the shot. So the bear's walking, and I have my reticle fixed, and so when a certain point of the reticle hits the body of the bear where I want to touch the trigger off, that's what I'm doing. Because there's no way I'm going to be able to stay stable on my shooting position
and
to try and track. Yeah. So I'm just doing the captured, whatever, ambush, whatever you call that shot tactic. But so the bear steps out and takes a couple steps and is right where I want to touch it off at.
And we're rocking a Silencer Co. Hybrid 46 at this point. So we were hoping to get multiple shots on bears.
Potentially.
But that's important because that, saved my life.
Yes. Mac wasn't directly next to the muzzle, but he was pretty close if we would have been shooting a typical break style or crown muzzle. So
and this was go. Like, this is a no ear.
It sounds like it kind of got Western there for a second.
Yeah, it did.
This isn't stop and put your ears in. Shoot this bear.
So it just got to the point of my aim on the reticle where I wanted to touch it off, and I touched it off. And since my shooting position was really crappy, I couldn't watch my shot follow through the scope.
Oh,
so
yeah. It kind of rocked you.
Rocked me off, and the next thing I know, I'm back on the gun, and I see the bear tumbling down the rocks.
Good sign.
And
Good
Mac's
sign.
like, oh, Micah.
The first thing you hear in the camera is, Micah! What? I wasn't ready!
Were you not recording?
I was recording,
Yeah,
but you could hear on the recording, it says, are you on him? And I say, or Micah's like, I'm on him. I'm like, okay, I'm not on him. Hold on.
And in my head, I was like, are you on him? And I
You're okay.
I hear, I'm on him.
So we have footage of this bear tumbling down the hill. But he blasted him. He got this bear. there it goes. We had a little funny dialogue around it.
Well, so we get back and looking at him, and I noticed that he's up, and
After the tumble.
Okay. and
How
then,
far do you think you tumbled?
50, 60, 70 yards.
Yeah,
Right on.
down, and I mean, enough that he was hurt bad.
Sure.
He wasn't going anywhere, and then Max saw him, and we were like, well, we're gonna put another one in him just to make sure.
Good
So
call.
I shot him again, and then he proceeded to tumble another, I don't know,
23 yards.
yeah, down.
And sort of land on a ledge thing, some brush.
So he we felt like he expired pretty quick, and both shots hit him.
But it was great that Micah. So this muzzle is like, like you said, it's not right next to my head, but I'm like, we're like on a hill next to each other. Man, if he had the break on that rifle and I was not ready for that shot, you'd hear me really loud on this podcast now.
You probably have no inner eardrum in one ear.
So we had a bit of a funny moment there. I was like, I was not ready for that at all. It's like, I thought you said you were ready. So then Micah sitting there for 15 minutes. He's like, I just realized you said you guys were having trouble getting bears killed on camera, and then I just killed one off camera. So
yeah, it was the best way to say it is, in the heat of the moment, things got a little western, and we were.
But we were super stoked.
You
got a bear down.
We got it done.
And you can see it. It's like
it's dead. It's
out
on the hillside.
You killed it. It's on the ground.
It's 400 yards away, and we're like congratulating each other. And then it's like, boom! All right, time. I was like, Micah, this is my favorite moment of the trip. This is where you get to carry the camera now. Give me that gun.
So we do the swapperoo because we know there's more bears in here.
Yeah.
And we were using the suppressor, so we thought that would kind of help mitigate things. Maybe since we're hunting the earlier portion of the season when they come out and the bears are kind of loopy, they're just coming out of hibernation, they don't know much, they're reacclimating, so we were hoping that we could see another bear yet that night, and there's plenty of shooting light left. So we switch Max on the gun, I'm on the camera, and we sit there another 45 minutes, and it kind of dawned on us that we probably made too much noise getting up, and what this bear was doing was probably one of the last bears to try and skate us.
We think he was on this north-facing hill that we're now sitting on because he couldn't afford to fight for the bigger hill, and he had busted through the woods and was like leaving, and all the other bears were far ahead of him.
So did you just leave Micah to like cut up the bear and just go glass some?
I wish. No. Actually, we missed a bear. That was number 7 because it was lucky number 7. We saw another bear, and I'm trying to think where it was. That's not important because we didn't shoot it, but.
So that was the 7th bear that you saw.
It was lucky number 7. It was this brown.
That Micah didn't see.
That Micah didn't see.
Yeah,
Or 7-0.
It was actually we gave Micah 7-1 because he saw Mama one time when she came out before I spotted her, so we had like a consolation
so
prize.
I can't see. Okay, so anyway, we're move things along here. We're
once again going down and going back up.
We're going back down and going back up, and we didn't want to do it, but it just didn't make sense to do it any other way. But we had to blow this basin out. We had to go through it where the bears were to get to my bear that I killed.
Because it's getting dark.
It's getting dark.
It's 8 o'clock.
And as everybody knows, always try and we were taking pictures of the angle of where we shot it so that we could relocate it on the other side of the canyon.
Try to mark it on Onyx.
And it still proved to be difficult. But
and that's steep stuff.
We eventually found it just before we lost light, and then we're trying to take care of this bear on Matt kept sliding down this rock. It was not ideal. So it was kind of a difficult,
pretty steep country.
Yeah, it was steep country. And we got up and we found his bear, and he didn't have the best. I think he made a good shot, but he didn't have the best shooting rest here. So when we came up to your bear,
my shot was a little low, so it just blew both of his front legs, just a little bit off.
Wait a second. Slightly off.
So
yeah, I was basically 8 inches low from a center shoulder shot.
Gotcha.
And so his like
femur essentially.
Yeah, so right below the shoulder on both legs.
It like arced and then went down to.
Yeah.
So it just took his front legs out completely.
Took his front legs out, and that's
going nowhere.
Yeah, but totally ruined any hide that I would have, because the 300 Weatherby with a 180 grain AccuBond, I got to see first.
I think we made
time.
Micah a believer on this trip.
just mushroom. I mean, just destroyed. So he had 2 softball-sized holes through both.
When you hit bone like that,
it was hanging on by like floppiness.
It's going to do a lot of work.
So that was horrible. And then my other anchoring shot actually was down by his pelvis, and just a massive hemorrhaging and blood loss there. So it was, I think he bled out really quick. But just bad for trying to cape him out. And
he was pretty rubbed too.
Well, he was in the shadow. So when I first looked at him, I'm like, oh man, a cool cinnamon color phase with brown back and then silver on it, like kind of a light blonde silver, because he's in the shadow and I couldn't really we're making pretty quick decisions, and get up there and the silver wasn't silver. He was just totally rubbed out.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so there was no salvaging.
Just skin. So not the best hide in the world.
Yeah, it was gross. So we actually couldn't salvage it. Plus the being the front legs were pretty much gone. We opted to just get to work on the meat, and
I'm a big bear meat fan. So I was like, Micah, we couldn't get pretty much anything off the front, but we're like, we're taking these back straps, we're taking these whole back legs.
Good on you.
I love me some bear meat. I was like, I'll carry this out just to eat it, because it's delicious sausage and great roast.
So we got our 2 rear quarters, and we got the back straps, and the skull, and got them packed up, loaded up, and got back to camp pretty late.
Yeah, we're slipping down this hillside, and it was so we shot a young boar. So there wasn't and they're spring bears. If you haven't shot spring bears, not like a ton of meat on them. They're a fall bear that's been
they've been hibernating for months.
Yeah, so this actually turned out to be a blessing that maybe a little bit of that meat got destroyed and stuff, because the rest of the trip was pretty rough. So we're a little lighter than we would have.
Yeah, it was a young boar, probably. I don't know.
I can't age a bear. I don't know.
Yeah, without tooth aging, I don't know. So we're happy actually at the end of this that it wasn't a big bear, because
then you have to haul it around with you the whole time.
It was about all we could load out. So
yeah, so we switched gears. We got back in the dark. It was hard. Like we were, fortunately not too terribly far from camp, but we're exhausted. This is Wednesday. We bombed all the way off 5,000, came all the way down this deadfall, set up camp after hiking another mile along this river bombed a mile and at like 1,200 feet up to the spot on Mama's spine, shot a bear, bombed back down, bombed back up, found this thing in the dark, came back to our camp that night. It was probably like 11 o'clock.
So you're tired.
Oh, we were just beat.
That was a big day.
Beat.
So that was day 3?
That was day 3.
So,
but we got a bear down on day 3 of 8 days planned.
All right. Yep. So let's talk about day 4.
So the next day we
slept in.
Well, we slept in, and I don't know how other guys hunt them, but we weren't seeing much activity in the mornings. It was mostly in the evenings, but you did spot one in the morning.
That one time, yeah.
So if you hunt mornings, you're bear hunting. They can be out and whenever, but we decided to sleep in because we had a rough day, and but we knew we had a kill up there. We wanted to check the carcass, so we basically said, hey, we're going to decide to sit my kill and see if anything comes in. Yeah. Even though we had kind of blew that
we had
that canyon out.
We blew the whole thing out.
So, but we had a suppressor. We were kind of high hopes, and we wanted to take kind of the most logical, easiest kill. We knew there was a ton of bears in there. Hopefully something's cruising through, really quick. So we decided to do that for that day. We give it that day, and into the evening, and nothing comes out. It's totally dead.
We stayed up there we got up there at like 2 o'clock.
Till dark.
And stayed there till dark and just didn't see anything.
So at that point, we decided to bail on that spot, just because we're like, we gave it a day.
Tough decision knowing that there's other bears close.
Yeah, leave
but
bears to find
if you
bears.
feel like you've kind of blown them out of there, then it's probably the right thing to do to move.
At this point, that was day 4, and it was now day 5 of 8 days. And we took all off trail to get to where we're at. And we're not going back up that 5,000-foot hill where there's no water the whole way to get back to the airstrip where we have to leave.
With camp and with now the extra added bear meat. So, because, I mean, it was so steep.
And you're probably going to
want
want to bring water the next time.
Yeah. So the only way out was to follow this feeder creek down and around, and which actually took us further and further away from the airstrip. So logistics-wise, it made sense to just call it, and we're going to now work our way closer to the airstrip in a roundabout way. So we actually taking this all off trail, and it all going.
Have you seen another human at this point?
No.
Did we see anybody the first day at the airstrip?
At the airstrip, no. But
we saw a dog.
There's
Just a dog?
Just a dog. We later learned there were humans with the dog, but this
Okay.
was the first day when we passed a little thing. But
So-
no, just us.
So we follow this out, and it's getting a little feeder creek that's off trail, and when you get in the bottom of those, it's just sheer on either side. So we're constantly having to cross this creek
To find the flattest spot with the least deadfall, but still.
And so ultimately, when we're getting closer to the main river, that we'll have to turn and get out and head towards the airstrip.
Kind of a finger that comes down on our side.
Gotcha.
We make the call that this is kind of difficult, and we should either make the decision to go up and over and kind of cut some of that distance off, because it's still a long ways that we'd have to go. So we make that decision to gain the elevation, and we go through more deadfall
After dropping down further.
Correct. And
Perfect.
because following that creek down, and we were conscious of that too. So it was
we wanted
kinda
to
like
make sure we stayed on the correct side because we didn't want where it meets the mouth to the main river. Like we don't want to have to backtrack for a creek crossing. And we looked at the topo lines, and where it meets the mouth of the river, those lines, like the lines were close everywhere we walked, but they're starting to look like really close.
Full canyon type situation.
So we're like, we should probably go up and over this finger and try to keep our elevation. We're also looking like I still got a tag. Like hopefully we can hunt some stuff on the way back if some of these feeder creeks exist. There looks like there's some open areas on this north-facing slope above the river. But once again, we're trudging through Sidehilling through deadfall. It's 75 degrees this day. We're not running. Once we leave the bottom of the creek, we filled up on water, but we're like busting it. And just off trail, if you haven't done like all off trail, like beating through the brush or deadfall, it's like eight
brutal.
times harder than the trail is. It's stupid how much harder it is.
It's slow going, and so we eventually get to a ridge where we can see the main river, and we're at this point thinking like this is pretty brutal. We are now at the furthest point from the airstrip. Out of the entire trip, and so we're trying to determine. The river is very dangerous, and we're looking at it and we're thinking, is there a possible crossing? Because
any way we can do this.
We are trying to find a trail. Unfortunately, this trail.
So if you cross the river, would I get you closer?
If we cross the river, there's a nice little footpath.
So that would make things, like lickety split. We could get to the airstrip, but we're not. We're on the wrong side of the river. So we're taking a
and it's
5
spring,
minute.
so it's probably pumping.
Yeah. It's ripping. It's not. It wasn't as high as it could have been, and so we're sitting there and. We just did this massive elevation gain, and now Mac proposed going down, and I wasn't super thrilled about that.
I said it was an option. No man should stick to a mistake just because he spent so long making it. Can't be afraid to quit it if it's going to be the easier road. But it was only, we were like, we have electronics. We have big, heavy packs. Like, we were like, look, we brought contractor bags to keep the bear meat in the river to keep it cool and stuff, because we had to do that. And we were like, is there any way like we can bag up the packs and find a spot to cross, like something, like even if we have to strip down to our underwear and swim, can we get across the river? Because it is going to save us so much effort. We've been off trailing the whole time, and we don't even know what the country we're going through ahead of us looks like, but it looks rough.
But we kind of come to the realization after looking at that river that we continue hillsiding, but then after looking at the maps and hillsiding and just as slow as it was going, we're like, we're going to take so many days to get back to the airstrip because it's such slow going, Sidehilling in such steep country, no trail, beating
through this willow brush that tore us up.
And we don't have any water. If we came to the realization.
Is there another airstrip that is like closer at this point? Is that even an option?
Nope. We looked at it.
Yeah, we were going through all options, and so this is actually one of the things in terms of my planning that I really felt like I kind of failed on was the exit strategy. Because if we would have both doubled bears, I mean, we would have been really hurting to get out of there. And it was a good spot, and we did see a lot of bears. But I think the reason why those bears are back there is because it is kind of almost. It's not impossible because we did it, but it's on the verge of, unhuntable, just logistics-wise. So anyway, we're on the hillside.
Yeah, we're side-hilling. We came around this bend, around this finger, and we start to beat through. It's no longer so much the deadfall, but it's this, like, thick willow brush, and that's what mainly, like, scratched us all up. We're bleeding everywhere and tearing Micah's pants, and my gloves are getting ripped because we're slipping down the hill and, like, holding on to branches.
Yeah.
We come to the realization that we're going to have to get off of this face and come down the river anyway because we got to cool the bear meat because it's been on our back for 10 hours.
And we're not finding water.
We're not finding water. We've now picked a campsite that's a beach that we hope we can get to. And we come to the realization that, hey, there might be a low water line. So we could get lucky and make the trip back on the offside trail of the.
Oh, just hiking riverbed?
Like,
yes.
Yeah. It's like, it's high, but it's like, it'd be hard. It wouldn't
not
be easy
flood
hiking,
stage at this point.
but we'd be like, we'd be hopping over rocks instead of beating over brush. So
and we'd be close to water.
Yeah.
Because
we're dying of thirst and the bear meat's possibly going bad. So we get down, and it took us, we put the Onyx tracker on. We went, to get to this little beach down here was a flat area where we were going to camp for the night because we were beat, and by the time we got there, it was probably 5 o'clock. It was, we went 4 miles in 5 hours.
Ouch.
It was slow going. At this point, we're like, if we do this,
brutal.
We literally are going to get to the airstrip on the day we have to leave. So we're beat. We get down to this beach. We're taking our boots off and
So shooting another bear at this point's not.
That's when I in-reached you, and I was like, we're basically in survival mode.
Yeah, so that was the last message I got from these guys was, I got a bear down, but we're trying to make it back to the airstrip. Max in survival mode.
It was that Max in survival
Yeah,
mode, not that you were.
He called it me in survival mode. I'm like, I'm trying to get the meat back that we have.
Max in survival mode. So I was like, well, I hope he doesn't eat you.
No, Max in really good shape, and me not so much. So, but my thing is I try to kind of mitigate and kind of save my legs. Not loaf on the side of the hill forever, but take a minute blow to catch my lungs.
Sure.
Or and just kind of so I have some constant
so you
progression.
Don't get gassed.
Yes, but Mac is like. Go super hard, just bust it, and then maybe take a little bit longer break once you get through the bad stuff.
You just haul till the cramps stop you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't like to get to the point where I'm cramping, so I'm just our paces at this point aren't matching up because he's a little bit physically better. And so we get to this
stop though. I wasn't like leaving you in the dust. I never got 200 yards ahead or anything.
No, and I mean I'm not I was capable. I hung. Yeah. I hung in there. Yeah. So it's fine. But anyway, I got derailed. Where was I going with that?
I don't know. I kept trying to move the story, and you're cutting in and go back to.
Well, so you're
tired.
did you camp at the beach?
We camped at this beach.
Oh, you're talking survival.
We
mode.
took
That's
we
really
took our boots off. Like, it was actually some sand. It was very nice because we had like hot spots starting on our feet from Sidehilling. And I like to get where I'm going. If I have a destination, I want to be there, and I want to take my long break there. So I was like, we're busting through.
Yeah, and my thing, the whole thing was, I'm like, it's Idaho. Just embrace the suck because it's gonna suck the whole time.
always
For sure.
embrace the
You know,
suck.
it's gonna
get
be
there.
brutal.
Yeah.
So the burn it till you get there. I was trying to save some legs in case, especially too, just a safety factor. If somebody slips on deadfall and I gotta drop packs and drag a body, you know, which is virtually impossible. So it's just
that's search and rescue territory.
So we get to our beach, and we're going to call this camp, and we've developed our plan of, like, we're going to try to walk this low water line. We can see the trail 50 yards across the river taunting us. It's like
kidding.
It's giving us the finger. It's real mean. And we sit down, and we're like, it's lunchtime. So I ate some of Micah's bear, and it was delicious. I brought some.
Proceeded to burn up even more fuel from
whatever.
melting snow to try and get these.
Are you trying to render some fat?
To try and get
No,
this
no,
bear.
there wasn't any fat.
To try and get this bear meat to
I
cook.
I like pan-seared it, and then I was boiling it to get to temp. I brought a little thermometer to be safe.
Right on. Don't want that trigonosis.
Yeah, don't want it. So I brought that. I wanted to eat. So I had some bear backstrap, and I brought a packet of instant Idaho mashed potatoes, and I had me some Idaho garlic and chive mashed potatoes with an Idaho black bear in the backcountry. It was delicious, but it did take a while. We started a fire, so we used his little pot to simmer some bear meat instead of burning up all the fuel.
So that was kind of we camped pretty close there to kind of wrap this long story up. That was, we had water, we got the rest of the bear cooled down, and basically that was camp because we were totally exhausted. Next morning, we get everything.
So the next morning, day
This
6.
is day 6, I think. Day 5 or 6.
And this is where, I'm just like kind of praying for help to get out of here because it is bad. The worst.
You're just
that
probably
I've done.
staring at that trail, thinking about swimming the river.
Yeah, I was
it
literally
was-
like, Mike, I was like, how many garbage bags do you have left? I will swim across. How much paracord do we have? I will swim with paracord tied to me
That's
and
scary.
drag this stuff across.
That's scary. It's probably good you didn't try that, or
And
maybe
this-
you did. So
This is a ripping river. So yeah. Anyway, the next morning we're packed up and we're just about ready to start our bushwhacking again, and we're gonna try this low water line deal.
I hope it works out.
But it did rain, and we were worried, like, oh man, it's just gonna be rising, So right about the time we are starting,
We're like shouldering the packs.
yeah.
shouldering packs, Mac looks up and is like, "Hey, rafters!"
I was like, Micah, there are rafters.
No way.
Not like in kayaks. They're in like
Like-
the big rafts.
Like a rafting
Like,
outfit.
yeah.
Like paying.
No,
tourists.
they were themselves just like
Okay.
doing it. But it's like it was 4
hardcore guys in
rafters.
like the two.
And they're coming around the bend of this beach. I was like, can you guys come over? He's like, I can't hear you. And starts throwing doors.
Yeah.
Like, there's a beach. Can you land?
I'm assuming their first thoughts were like Tom Hanks Cast Away.
Yeah.
Like Max,
Yeah.
like
Wilson.
yeah. He was,
Wilson, I'm sorry.
so they
We flag them down.
they come to this beach, and it worked out perfect too because there was a spot where they could pull in and the whole campsite deal. So we talked to them and explained the situation, and they're like, "Yeah, sure, we'll take you across."
Yeah, we just
How
got
far is across, by the way?
It's like 25 yards, but it's a rage river.
Yeah,
but like
30.
we gotta like shout out here, like Jeff, Mark, Steve,
Shout
and
out.
Nick.
Nick,
Those
shout
are
out.
like the guardian angels. I'm like carving into my bedpost. These guys
They saved you,
saved our lives. They were super nice rafters. It's actually they were the ones who told us about the snow runners. They rented people to drive them over the snow.
No way, just to get to the
into this
headwater.
river and to raft it while it is such as it is. And they had these big like 2 pontoon side like
Yep.
tube rafts. So we strapped the packs in, and we're like sitting on their like Yetis or whatever they have on them, and just like holding on. And it's crazy what these guys did. Like they see an eddy in like this this rock cliff right before like a raging rapid, and like we're aiming for that. If we can get that to you guys, you'd be good. We're like, yeah, I mean, we'll beat through the brush for 50 more yards to be done with this.
Sure.
So they strap our packs on, and they take us across the river.
Did they do them one at a time, or like so now there's 6 people plus your packs on this raft?
No, so they had 4 rafts. There was a guy. There was a guy in a kayak.
Oh,
and
so
then
they
3
each had
guys.
their own catamaran. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they take us into this eddy, and then like we pull up to these rocks. We're like walking on these buoys or whatever, get our stuff. I was actually able to film a little bit once we landed. We put the cameras in bags or whatever just to be safe.
Sure.
And I think Micah filmed some on his phone.
Oh yeah.
And
that's awesome.
they get us across safely. Everything super nice guys. And we get up, and 50 yards later, we're on the sweet, blessed
You're on the
Forest
trail.
Service trail, heading back to the airstrip.
And it is amazing how quick you can cover ground on a nice trail.
We then tracked the day previous. We had done 4 miles in 5 hours. We did 4.5 miles in an hour and a half.
Oh man, that's better. That's better.
Got back to the airstrip and took.
Oh, you made it all the way there.
We made it all the way.
So it cut distance and everything.
Oh, it was about the same, probably distance, I would say, but we just so much easier. So we get back, and it's day 6 of 8, and we're pretty beat. We met some nice fellows that we actually hung out with for the rest of the day, and this is where we started to learn that maybe the backcountry airstrip isn't as unpopulated as you think. We ran into 2 really cool guys, Trevor and his dad Jack, and
shout out.
we talked with them and sat around the campfire and actually sort of split camp with them. It was a good time. And then there were some other guys.
They had flown in as well.
They had flown in as well. And then there were some other guys right up the airstrip that had set up camp for 2 weeks and I think had some bait or whatever. And they were planning on staying here for 2 weeks and they were going to kill a whole bunch of bears. And we took the rest of that day and didn't do much. We just sat on the airstrip and recuperated. But I still had a tag in my pocket and we wanted to give it our all. We contacted our pilots, and they actually don't fly on Sundays, the particular charter we took, so there was no coming out early. We're with Monday as scheduled was our departure, so you know, we're like, we got back, this was Saturday, Sunday, we're going to go
look for a bear.
We're going to go look for a bear. So we chilled that day and then hung out with those guys. Next day, we're camping on the airstrip. We've been all off trail. We've been beaten to death. We're like tired, scratched up, whatever. And we're like, all right, we're going out after a bear. We decided to head in a new direction. We stuck to the trail until we got to where we wanted to glass. I identified a couple of bowls that looked good, that had some water and some south facing and stuff like that. And we set out from camp in a different direction and we headed towards these bowls. They're about 4 miles away. We did another 2,000 feet of elevation that day going up to these spots, and they looked...
Well, so another 8 mile, 4,000
Yeah,
feet
by the end,
day.
heading back. So we hiked up, and it was great. It was great. Those flowers, those sunflower-looking flowers, the bears are like...
those yellow ones.
They were everywhere. We could see even more than our first spot, because this was really clear country, like steep hillsides, rocky. We're like, this is great.
Why didn't we just come here first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're just glassing. We're giving it. We actually stopped halfway up. We're like, oh, we can see a lot here. Maybe we don't want to go the other 900 feet to the top. And we ate lunch and sat around for an hour. So I was like, you know what, Micah, like, I'm gonna feel bad if we don't go up to where these bowls are because they look pretty good. So we're gonna give it our all. We hiked it up. Saw some blue grouse up there.
Sweet.
Some duskies. Actually, one scared the crap out of me, as they do when they flush 5 feet from your head.
Well, and we're like standing on a sheer like rock face cliff, and the wind's ripping through there, and like you're trying to grab some dirt or rocks.
What was that?
Like,
But this was, I'll say, compared to the brush we've been beating, this was steep going up, but this was like it was like a little goat trail. This thing was great. This was like it felt like those treadmills in the airport that walk for you compared to what we've been doing.
Yeah.
And we get to the top, and these bowls look great, but they actually kind of look like the bowls where we'd been seeing elk that first day.
Okay.
We're like, it's not that steep, but the country around us is steep. And we're getting a little discouraged. At this point, we haven't seen a bear since Wednesday when Micah shot his, and we just have been beating ourselves to death. And we kind of want to end the trip on a high note. We're not seeing critters. We're seeing some elk or whatever. 5 finally it's getting dark, and we want to at least do the steep portion. We're okay hiking the trail in the dark, but we want to get done the steep before it's too dark. And we head back down, and across the river, no bridge anywhere, we got a lone black bear. 800 yards away. We could have got in for a 600 yard shot on it, but
it was a killable bear. It
But
was just
across
on
the river.
on the wrong side.
but a wrong side of the river.
Brutal.
But at the same time, going back to what I said earlier, just seeing black bears, it's so exciting. He was a little fella too. Even for a last day bear, we had a lot of time to look at him. He's got the long legs. He's got big old Dumbo ears. We're kind of man, even if we could shoot that bear, that's a pretty young bear. But that was the 8th bear that made me 8-0.
8-0.
Michael was trying real hard that day.
Nobody's gonna want to take me on a hunt because they're like, this guy can't see anything.
Well, you'll just have to keep going with me.
Well, yeah. So I'd say we that ended, on a high note. We got back to the airstrip, and for anybody listening, don't think just because you're going on an airstrip, it's getting you away from people. That's kind of what we both kind of learned.
Yeah. Or that it's just going to be easy because you're already in the backcountry, because people fly into those, and the bears aren't just hanging out on the airstrip.
Yeah,
they ain't doing
there's
it.
enough activity that was, I think, I'm happy in the spot that I picked, because I thought by taking us off the, beaten path that we would find bears, and we did. We found a lot of bears.
I gave Micah a lot of crap because I was spotting the bears, and he's like, I got Legolas over here spotting my bears for me. But I have to give him credit, and I did. I was like, Micah, you picked a good spot, because you know what? We came in here,
And there's bears.
and we saw 8 bears, and I talked to one of our mutual friends who goes and hunts in the same area, and has been hunting there his whole life, and he took a trip and only saw 3.
So
it was a good decision where you picked. We didn't see a ton of killable bears, I would say, but we saw a ton of bears.
Yeah, so I'm trying to re-engineer. Sorry, I can't talk. This trip from a logistics standpoint of how things learned, and how to actually get to that spot to actually be able to pack bears out, make things work. Because without water, without a trail system, the difficulty spectrum is just massive. And so last year's spring bear hunt I thought was the hardest physical hunt that I've ever done, and this year's topped it. So definitely learned some things, and still learning on how to kind of dissect this after action. And I think a key factor, if anybody's wants to know, I think would be the alpaca raft.
that's what I was just about to say. We've got a couple alpacas here.
Next,
How much were you
we
kicking?
determined the strategy next year was, if we go to the same spot, if we do this hunt again,
take at least
you take
one
that,
alpaca.
You take one raft, because one guy can shoot a bear and go across, put it in the raft, and bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the
or
end of the day.
The mobility.
if you didn't have a lot of gear, you could probably get
two guys,
or you could take
take the gear across and then come back and grab the guy.
Yeah.
But at the end we determined that's the way to do that.
You can utilize the trail system to your advantage, get further, and less wear and tear on your body, and then
you can shoot bears no one else can.
and then
Then jump across and get back into that.
and open yourself up to so much new territory that's basically untouched, because you can't get to it. I mean, and you can't do it with horses. You just cannot get to it unless you're.
Well, when there's a real river involved, swimming the river. It's not like crossing a creek and putting your bag over your head. I mean, that y'all made the right decision to not try to swim the river. That would
I got pretty close.
That's sketchy. Sketchy.
But we learned a lot of things, and it was cool. And I do this a lot here. I've gone on a lot of trips with you. I've gone on a lot of trips with Adam. And it's definitely, I haven't tallied up the miles yet on our tracker. I know it's not the most miles I've ever done on a trip in 8 days, but it definitely was the most brutal.
It was the hardest
hiking.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the hardest trip. I don't know what it was, but it was the most prolonged, brutal hiking. You always have to do some sucky hiking, like when you kill an elk or something. We pulled Brenda's elk out of that hellhole last year, but that was it was like that portion of the trip was our whole trip.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It ups the difficulty factor, and it demoralizes you. It beats you down. But at the end, I'm still super glad we did it. It was Mike and I's first hunt together, so it was a blast. like we work
Yeah.
together in the office. We already are pretty good buds. We got to know each other. You get to know each other in a different way. When
I
you
can
go
tell
on a
there's
trip
a
like that.
newfound bond between you guys.
It's mainly me making fun of Micah.
Yeah, I've just been like this huge punching bag for all of Mac's jokes, but no, I appreciate having a stellar hunting partner that's physically more than capable of has higher fitness than me. So I felt like I was kind of falling behind some of the times, but a guy that isn't going to bail on you in when you're in that difficult of a situation. So
it is good to have a guy that, like, me and Micah killed ourselves for 7 days, and I was like, at day 8, I was like, I want to hike 2,000 feet up this hill. And he's like, let's do it. You got a tag in your pocket. Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, good on you both. That's when you're hunting like that, you got to make sure you're in good company. Sometimes you don't really know somebody until you're like tested like that. So that's pretty.
We thought about maybe if we did this again, maybe planning one with logging roads and pickup involved, less hiking.
Yeah, well, less adventure too. So.
Oh, I had a perfect description, and I might get. This might get totally edited out of the podcast. We'll find out. But I said this to you and Trevor, and I was like, I don't want to take anything away, but we men don't have this. We don't have you talk about a woman who gives birth to a child, and then there's something chemically that they forget it, and a year later, they're like, they only remember the good thing.
Oh, we have it.
I want another one. I think the closest we guys can get to that
You're right.
is these kind of hunting trips. You
You're
forget
exactly right.
all of that happens,
Yeah.
and you're like, man, that trip sucked.
Can't wait to do it again.
Can't wait to do it again. Where are we going
That's
next year?
Exactly right.
I think that's the closest we can ever get.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know exactly what the story was, but I talked to Adam. We're going to do a podcast with Adam. Probably they'll post somewhat after this one. That he had a pretty
I'm excited
very
to hear that.
physically demanding experience too, and I assumed y'all's was going to be similar. So Mac, I know you really like movie quotes, so I put a movie quote on here. I'll put you to the test, and it's relevant.
We're all put to the test, but it never comes in the form or at the point we would prefer, does it?
Is that Anthony Hopkins?
It is Anthony Hopkins. In what movie? It's like a relevant one, I think.
We're all put to the test. Oh,
it's definitely not any of the Silence
Edge
of
of
the Lambs.
Darkness or
close. The Edge.
The
Just
Edge.
The
The Edge. Oh, I've not seen it, but I recognize Anthony Hopkins, and that is an applicable quote, and I appreciate the movie quote.
Yeah, we're all put to the test. I think what's funny is when I was talking to Adam at lunch is you don't really think about spring bear as being like a big test. Like you think about like, oh, I got this big elk hunt or like this big mule deer where you're just chasing mule deer in this crazy backcountry. But so far, from best I can tell, and I'm definitely not a pro bear hunter, you can get in some sketch situations real quick on spring bear. And to me, I just love the adventure. So I love it.
Yeah. It's more exciting than a gobble, that's for sure.
Yeah, just if you're excited to want to do this, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not a logging road hunt at all. And be prepared to shoot long distances. And be prepared for steep.
Lots of climbs. Get your quads in shape.
Yep.
Yeah.
And bring a good hunting buddy. Good hunting buddy. That's important.
Awesome. So the plane came and picked you guys up. You flew out and
we drove back, and we got into the office, like Luke said, about 15 minutes before this podcast started. Might have slept in a little bit.
Good. I'm glad you did. We got a lot of work to do now.
Yeah.
So to land this plane, glad you guys had a good trip. Got some great content. I can't wait to see the pictures and the video.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And if you're listening or watching on YouTube and you like this kind of first take hunt debrief, it's the first one we've done quite like this, let us know, and maybe we'll do some more. So thanks for listening.